So I'm going to walk you through the best way to switch shows from a furlong show to a musical main stage show and vice versa, so you don't hopefully mess up with any of the settings from one show to another, and you're able to recall your saved settings on a completely different show. So bear with me, this is how you do that. So first thing is to go to your view button on the scene section right here, and that will change the screen to look something like this. And we're in scene 1 right now because I happen to be in the musical main stage show and I only use one scene for that. We have changed a couple things, so I'm going to go ahead and save this scene by pressing this little knob in. When you press the knob in, it will select that category that it's under. So you click that, save. We don't need to write a title or anything. We can click save, overwrite, and then you can click the little arrow button, yes. So now we've just saved that particular scene for this show, but we also want to save everything that we've done to the musical main stage show file. And to do that, you're going to make sure again that you are in the view of the scenes, and we are currently, and you're going to hit the over arrow button to go to the home tab, and then you're going to need to hit the utility button right there, and then it's going to tell you export show or import show. Because we're saving everything we just did to kind of overwrite the file, we're going to hit export, and we're going to scroll down for our case to musical main stage, and we are going to save. Overwrite, yes, we do. And this might take a little while depending on how many scenes you adjusted and have, and that's going to load. If it doesn't start loading within like the first 10 seconds and it just kind of sits there, which it has done before, then something's wrong and you'll want to kind of exit out of there. So okay, we are all saved onto our USB, which is great. The next thing you're going to want to do is go through all of your channels just to be safe, and record the gain settings for each channel in case something gets screwed up. So we want to make sure that we select our first channel, and then over on your screen up here you can hit home, and that will take you to the view for that particular channel. Your gain setting, or trim some people call it, is, you can see it right here in numerical form. In this case it's going to be +2. Another thing, if you're kind of new to this, you can also write down your sends, just in case something happens. Normally I don't have a problem with these recalling, but if you lose all your show info, that's going to be really important and hard to kind of make up on the fly. So that might be another thing to just record somewhere for each individual channel. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these, and you'll be writing down the particular gain setting for each one. These are all at 2. Make sure that you go through each bay of channels to make sure that you get every single channel that you might be using, including your auxiliary lines, especially your effects channels, and your buses will not have gains, but you can record their fader setting just to be safe, especially your first time. The next thing you'll want to do is to scroll over to your parameter and channel safes. Now on this particular show for Musical Mainstage, I don't use any because we only stay in one scene. So we're not tracking any data between one or the other. When we are using them, they'll be lit up yellow like this, but they're not. So we don't actually need to record any of these when you're switching out of a Furlong show to a Musical Mainstage show. Make sure you write down which tracking settings you have on. Pretty much all of these will be on except for your mute over here. And then your channel safes will really just vary depending on what happened during the show. I tend to keep all of the effects on tracking, but again, sometimes you need to have multiple effects and then it gets a little bit more complicated. But so make sure you write down which parameter safes you have engaged for your show, and then go ahead and deselect all of them. I find it works better for changing shows when you deselect and just have it all cleared out, as long as you write them down first. Then the next thing you'll want to do is go ahead and go back to your view button in the scenes. You'll bring up this one and you can scroll over to home and then hit the utility button again. That will bring up our screen. This time we are going to import the show we're switching to. And in our case, we're loading Poppins. We can hit select. Load show file. Yes, we do. And then that's going to take a while to load. I would recommend leaving about 20 minutes to switch between shows to be safe. Okay, our show has loaded and it's going to come up with a scene which is load scene 0 ? Scene 0 ignores all safes. I've actually found it better to not load scene 0 in general, but you certainly can. I don't think it hurts anything. I think it just tends to work better when you don't. So you go ahead and hit the no button, and it's just you're in. We hit the view scenes. You can see that we are in the correct show, but we're just not engaged in any particular scene right now. It still has all of the settings loaded from the previous show. So to engage the next one, what you're going to want to do is make sure you scroll over to your parameter safes, and we're going to disengage all of these. This is very important because what it's going to do is make sure that when we load our first scene, that we're not tracking any data over to that scene. We're just loading everything fresh. If you leave these tracking settings all on, it will save all of that. Not really save, it won't save it to the scene, but you won't have all of those previous settings come up from the last time you were in this show. And if you wrote them all down before you left, you don't have to worry about writing them down a second time when you disengage them. So then we got one more here. And we'll disengage all of those, even though I'm not using all of those channels, just but easier to do it this way. Alright, so we have everything disengaged. We're going to go back to our scene, and we're going to load our mic check scene by hitting the go button. And you'll see everything on the board has now loaded to where it was previously before we left. At this point, you're where you should be, but you really need to double check that everything came back the way you want. You'll also want to go into your parameter and channel safes and re-engage the exact ones that were on previously. Oops. Which I will do in just a minute here. And then the next step is to also go through all of your channels by selecting the channel, the button above, and you can scroll over to the home screen. Oops, sorry. Hit the home button, not scroll over. You can check to make sure that all your gains are where they were when you left the show. That's really your most important factor, and then also your sends. And as long as all of those match up, you're in pretty good shape. If you notice anything drastically wrong, then probably the best thing to do is to not save anything, because you might accidentally overwrite information that's still there. The best idea is to maybe call somebody more experienced with the board first before trying to solve it other ways, because it might just be as simple as going back a couple steps and reloading, and then all your information will still be there. I find it's really helpful that you go, when you load your first scene, when you're coming back to a show, that you use a scene that has most of the channels muted, so you don't accidentally jump into a show that has something plugged in and it makes crazy loud noises unexpectedly. So best to have a channel where everything's muted, which tends to be the mic check channel. That is all I have. If you have any questions on switching between shows, feel free to call me. Thanks.